What's up, y'all? I'm Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, one of the highest rated hospitality podcasts in the world, brought to you by us at Schedulefly. We provide a very simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you're on pencil and paper or Excel, or you're on some software with tons of bells and whistles and features you don't need or use, Schedulefly is the perfect place for you. Easy to use, point, click, and go, and we'll take great care of you. Schedulefly.com, free trial, check it out. All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedulefly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. All right, y'all, this is pretty cool. This is actually the first episode that I can really think about where I was slightly nervous, just slightly. But this is Charles Watson, and he is the CEO of Tropical Smoothie Cafe. So they've got 1,500 locations. So I would say he's the most high-profile guest that we've had on this show, and luckily that those nerves went away real quickly because he's a super just chill dude, engaging guy, fun guy to talk to, has a great perspective on the business. And it was really fun hearing his story growing up with his dad owning restaurants. He got into hotels and then the transition over to Tropical Smoothie. And what's happened with that brand since he's gotten there and where they're going. We had a wonderful, wide-ranging conversation, and you're going to really enjoy this episode. So thank you to Charles for being on here. Thank you to y'all for listening. More episodes coming soon. See ya. Charles, I'll tell you what, man, we'll start out. Just do me a favor. Just introduce yourself real quick.
Hey guys, I'm Charles Watson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. So we got connected through, you see my hat here.
Yes, I like that hat.
I love this hat so much. I love Jen. I love what they're doing at Giving Kitchen. I've been down there to her office. I had her on the podcast, and I'm on the local board here. I'm just inspired and proud of the work they're doing. So Giving Kitchen folks, tip of the hat to you. And, I asked Jen, I saw that you were in Atlanta, and I said, I wonder if Jen knows him. And so, quickly we got connected. So I appreciate you doing this. Charles, we've been doing this podcast like 12 years since I had literally had like a USB mic attached to a laptop, and I would hold my BlackBerry, and do like a speakerphone call. But when nobody knew what podcasts were, and I kind of had to beg people to come on, and it's been such a fun journey just talking to people over the years. And we really started out talking to just independent restaurant owners, which was the initial goal of this thing. And that's solely because, my business is Schedulefly, and we built it to serve independent restaurants. And then over the years, we pick up a lot of these franchisees of different brands. And so we've kind of expanded a lot and started having, folks like yourself on here to talk about what's going on in the world of franchising and what's going on in the world of your specific brand. And so, the goal here today is really to hear your story, your background in hospitality. I know you're in hotels and, did some pre-call prep, of course. And then we'll talk about where you are with Tropical Smoothie now and where you're going. And I'm actually we're going to do something fun. As I asked ChatGPT, what are Charles Watson's achievements at Tropical Smoothie? So I'll read those out to you and see if it like aligns with what you've really kind of put your finger on there. But I'll start out by asking you this. So you're from Atlanta, I'm taking initially,
Born and raised.
born and raised, and you went to the Lovett School.
I did. Yep.
Okay, and you graduated in '95, so you were just a few years behind me. I was in high school. I graduated in '92, and the only reason I know Lovett is I went to Woodbury Forest, and there were
Yeah.
always like some guys, every now and then we'd have a guy from Lovett come up there. That's how I got familiar with your great school there.
How about
So,
Beno Ansley? Did he show up
yeah,
there? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Bana.
Beno just bought and sold a house for me. So yeah, I've known him a long time, and he's done an amazing job in Atlanta real estate. So it's yeah,
He's done, from what I understand, like he's like a powerhouse real estate brand down there, from what I
he
hear about
is.
Bano.
He is for
Yeah,
sure.
he was probably about the same age as you. Graduated around then. I
He's a
think he
year,
was like,
yeah, he was a year ahead of me. But now
yeah.
my favorite thing about the Woodbury Forest School is that the way that you say that is the Woodbury Forest School. That's how that's pronounced. Yeah, it's a
Well,
little bit different depending on where you're from.
that's sort of the old school South Georgia, Eastern North Carolina way to pronounce it, but,
That's right.
I grew up in Charlotte, so, I have a little bit of a different take, and of course, now you would say it in a lot of different accents because they got kids from all
True.
over the world
Yeah.
there.
It's a great
I'm
school.
pretty yeah, I'm pretty engaged up there and go up there and talk about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. I'm up there about
Cool.
3 or 4 times a year. Yeah, so but yes, that would have been the way back in the day when
Yep.
Bonneau would have gone up there. So, you get out of there, you go to Cornell. What went out? This is the one question.
Yeah.
This podcast is always just a conversation. I never have a really specific direction, but the one question I always ask is how and when did you get started in hospitality?
So, I started pretty early. My dad was in the restaurant business in Atlanta. And I've told this story a lot of times, but it is a funny story. My dad went to Cornell, where I went. He made it 1 week until he got kicked out, and he got in his car. He drove all the way to Florida, and he enrolled at the University of Tampa. He was going to play football at Cornell as well, so we went down to Tampa, and he started rowing crew. And he left the University of Tampa, got back in his car, kept driving with two fraternity brothers. They landed in Atlanta in the mid to late '60s, and went, "What do three fraternity brothers do? Let's open a bar." Right? So they open a bar. Next thing you know, they've got 25 independent bars and restaurants under what's called the WD Crowley's was and the company name was Downside Risk. But they had a bunch of restaurants. They kind of took the New York steakhouse feel and brought that to Atlanta. And what did Atlanta do in the early '70s? Completely blew up. Obviously, you could still have martinis at lunch back then, and so they had just a ton of success. And I saw my dad really do great, and then quite honestly fall off a cliff. So that comes into the story later. But long
Mm,
story short, I started washing dishes when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and my dad used to call the dishwasher the race car, as if he thought that, like, if he called it a race car, I would want to do it more. That would be more interesting to me. But it really was washing dishes standing on a bus tub because I'm a pretty tall guy. But even then, I couldn't reach the hose. But that's when I started, and I worked from fifth, sixth grade all the way through college till the Olympics came to Atlanta in '96. I was tending bar at that point, and I found out very early my love for green American dollars comes from tipped positions, waiting tables, and
yeah.
and tending bar, and so that got me into hospitality, and I never honestly really looked back from there. Tended bar in college, and I've always been in hospitality. I think everybody should be because it'll certainly make you treat people differently.
Oh my gosh, so much from that. Well, first of all, yes, I completely agree. I felt like there should be like mandatory 2 years. Like some countries have like mandatory 2 years in the military. I feel like we ought to have mandatory 2 years of hospitality
Yeah.
because it really humbles you and helps you learn to appreciate the other side of that exchange as a guest and as a consumer and what goes into how much hard work and care and intention and blood, sweat, and tears and love and passion go into creating what would just seem like a normal day at a restaurant and a great hospitality experience. There's every piece of the economy rolls through there. There's all kinds of things happening all the time, and the skill sets that you have to master to really get that right, whether it's as a bartender or a server or a manager, are so to your point, you do 2 years there, that's a highly transferable set of skills that you can apply in almost any industry.
Absolutely. And it's service, right? What do I do? What do you do as leaders of our organizations? We're serving, right? What do
That's
I
right.
what do I tell our people? We're serving franchisees. Those franchisees are serving their crew members, and those crew members are serving the end guest. I mean, it's
Yes.
value chain going forward that's important. And sometimes we forget that, right? Who the boss really is, because the boss is the person who's taking that $10 out of their wallet and saying, do I want to give this to you or do I not want to give this to you? And if we can provide a great service, even when we screw up, we can recover from it. But if we don't care about people, we don't have a little bit of personality and hospitality behind it. I feel like we're in trouble. Hospitality isn't dead in this country, but it's not soaring like an eagle either, in my opinion.
It needs to have a renaissance. It's been stripped out, a lot of places culturally and through the economics of having to, you know, pay people enough money to provide good hospitality, but we're missing it. We crave it. We know it when we see it. So if you can get it, I talk to my buddies a lot about, and this is true in any business really. The unfortunate thing is the bar for service is so low right now, but the fortunate thing is if you get that, you can exceed that bar so much by just doing the basic things that people did do 20 or 30 years ago, and it just blows people away. So you have this opportunity because of that gap, but we all want that bar to raise higher just in general. Um, you know, it's interesting because you mentioned the 10 bucks. 10 bucks is 10 bucks is a lot less money than 10 bucks was 5 years ago, and people are working a lot harder to make that 10 bucks, and so they're a lot more discerning with that $10 now, and so they're gonna pay attention not only to what's the product I get from that, but what comes with it, what kind of interaction comes with it, the experience in there. Um, Talk a little bit about that because that's been a big, we're starting to see things like I just saw today that McDonald's had was down what it was last year. This like we're seeing that the consumer's starting to go, man, this inflation stuff is really starting to catch up and it's hitting me hard. I know that's obviously top of mind for you and the team there. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'll get like quasi nerdy here. As I can't be that nerdy because I'm not really smart enough to be nerdy. But I would tell you that grocery, right? If you look at grocery prices over the past, call it 4 or 5 years, they're up. What is it, 26%, something like that. And what drove restaurants during the pandemic was the displacement between restaurant and grocery. Well, it's back the other way now, right? The past 5 years, restaurants are like plus 44, right, in terms of the amount of price that they've taken. So grocery is a better deal now. It sure doesn't feel like it. I went with my 11-year-old son and we said, hey, Sunday night spaghetti. I got 2 boxes of spaghetti, two, things of spaghetti, maybe a dessert, a couple other things, $66. I went, well, let me think about that. So I just made a dinner for four for $66. And what if the four of us had gone out to dinner? And think about that, $100. There's that delta. There's that $40 delta. When I mentioned that $10, you're not getting out a tropical smoothie for less than $10. You can if you order just a smoothie, but our average check is like $12.50, right? And so it is hard to put that in proportion. But I do think the divorce of Main Street and Wall Street, right? People talk about how well the markets are doing or not doing. And guys like you and I are blessed to, maybe we own some stocks or some bonds or whatever that may be, or our 401ks. There's such a divorce between those two things of what the market is doing and what Bill and Sally and Jane and everybody that's walking around the street, what they can actually do. And, you know, I try to remember that because the power of a $20 bill, I remember having a $20 bill in my pocket and like I could go do multiple things with that. And you cannot today. Now, that will work out. I also am a believer that if you look at our industry and what people were paid, those wages and that minimum wage didn't go up for like 20 years. So it was going to happen. Now, unfortunately, it all happening at once is very much of a shock. So I'm looking forward to when you and I go, man, we haven't had any inflation in a long time, and blah blah, and we're used to that $100 for a family of four, and we have dinner for four, and it's $60. I'm like, wow, that's cheap, right? But it's here to stay right now. It's not going anywhere, and it's real. And again, we got a presidential election coming up, and actions have consequences, so to speak. And I'm not saying that right or left leaning. I'm just saying that the average American is not doing great. And so what's happening? McDonald's is posting a -1, right? And the value wars are coming, so to speak. And hospitality and service, if done correctly, is even more valued. So you got to find the silver lining in these issues, and what can my restaurant brand or your restaurant brand or your company do in these times when you know that there's the opportunity isn't obvious anymore. You got to go find it and lean into something that you think can differentiate you. So that's kind of my take.
So okay. First of all, I gotta go back to your dad's story because I just
Yeah,
love that. It sounds like something it's like, you mentioned, he got kicked out, they went down there, then they left Tampa. It sounds like and then you had, like, they were working and building these restaurants when you could still have a martini at lunch. So in my mind, I'm like a real visual person, I love film. I'm thinking like Animal House meets Mad Men era, like,
yeah, pretty
it
much,
was just it was
pretty
yeah,
much,
just
pretty
a
much.
but what I love about what he and his partners did is, and this is still true today, it's just harder to overcome the cultural, uh, pressure to go to a four-year college, graduate from a four-year college, and look, and I've got 3 kids, I got a daughter at Penn State, I got a couple of high school boys, but, the cost of education is just I mean, talk about inflation,
Yeah,
has gone up so much, and then there's still room for kind of the maverick, autodidact, I'm gonna figure this out just through trial and error and just go for it. Like, I'm young, I can take some risks and just see what happens. You can still do that. It's not as common these days, and it seems a lot riskier, but it's still there, and there are still people that do that. But I love that story, and what I also wanna ask you about with that story is I'm curious if it was because of the economic cycles or what happened because they build 27 restaurants, they build a successful group, they're go and then things start to go south. What happened?
well, you already mentioned it. It was Animal House and Mad Men, so there were plenty of extracurricular activities that didn't help the operations of the
Yeah.
business. No, I think that I remember, you'll love this. My dad would say, these blank salads, iced tea and salad. All we can sell is iced tea and salad. Well, if you went from selling 3 martinis and a steak for lunch to selling an iced tea and a salad as a business owner, you can equate that to so many other businesses, right? Of
Yeah.
the consumer is changing what they're doing, and
Yeah.
things were great here. Now they're here, and your perception of that loss is difficult. The business doesn't feel as good to you anymore. So what do? You can go through the change curve and try to change the business and change how you're serving the consumer, or you can sit there and cry about it, right? So I would tell you that my dad's tale and his partner's tale was very similar to a lot of multi-unit restaurant operators, which is we got 7 doing great, we got 7 doing terrible, and we got 7 kind of in the middle, right?
Mhm.
And that's a lot of work. That's a
Yeah.
lot of brain damage to have 2 barbells and a kind of a middle ground in the middle. And so I think our franchisees, sometimes as they scale, they get to that as well. Not ours, of course, because they're all wildly successful. But you do, and it becomes how much work is worth how much return. And
Right.
then we get into the personal soul searching and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing I would tell you, and it goes along with your thought about education, which is, man, I don't know about you, but I got lots of education. I went to some good schools. I even went back and got an MBA. If I'm honest, because I can say this now, you know why I went back and got an MBA? Just for the piece of paper, just as an insurance policy. Did I learn some stuff? Yes, I learned some stuff, right? The college I went to, just like, yep, it's got a brand to it, right? Cool. I went and bought the best brand that I could. Did I learn some stuff? Yep, learned some stuff. You know as well as I do, what you learn in college is not what's in the classes. What you learn is how to relate to people, how to get your ass out of bed, how to live, how to drive around, how to pay a couple bills, etc. And do you need to pay $100,000 a year for that? I don't know. I'm right with you. I mean, but at the same time, we both have kids. Are we going to send them to college? Yeah, right? Because it's an insurance policy, right? But my point here is that my dad was successful. I've had a little bit of success because I get up every day and I try to work my butt off. You know, for me, that happens to be working my butt off for franchisees who work their butt off for their employees who work their butt off for the end guest, right? We all have that value chain, back to that. But I mean, there's no substitute for hard work, is all I'm saying.
Amen.
Yeah,
Same thing, I went to Davidson, history major, and here I am running a software business and
right.
but I mean, I got a good network from it, so
Yeah.
that's really valuable, but, yeah, there was a great my daughter graduated a couple years ago, she's my oldest, and the guy said at their graduation, he said, "Doesn't matter where you go, it matters what you do when you get there," and I think that just translates the same as after you get there and after you graduate, whatever job you get. That piece of paper might help you get your first job, but then it
Yeah.
is all even playing field, and it just matters what do you do when you get there,
I,
and
I remember being so worried about what my GPA was.
yeah,
I literally didn't get asked my GPA one time. Let me tell you one more funny story because this is a podcast, so it's all about telling funny stories.
yeah,
So Tropical Smoothie has transacted twice, right? We were with a smaller private equity firm that sold to a medium-sized private equity firm, and we were just bought a month ago by Blackstone, which is
yeah.
arguably the largest and the biggest and baddest alternative asset manager in the world. I'll tell you, they're actually pretty nice gals and girls, guys and gals as well. But we've gone through the whole chain at this point, and it's been so interesting to see different things along the way as you transact and as you move up that different ladder. How much you learn at each individual step of the way, and what happens with it. I've lost my train of thought there a little bit. I'll come back to it, but it's been oh, here's where the story comes in. I mentioned I went to that college, and I remember sitting in the library or the little area you'd hang out with in between classes, and I looked over towards the library, and this happened multiple times. All the kids lined up in their gray or blue suit. What are they doing? I'm just this rude from Atlanta, right? What are they doing? Oh, they're interviewing. They're interviewing at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and Accenture and you name it, right? And I went, I don't have the GPA to even get in that line. And I couldn't tell you how many tennis balls are in a swimming pool if you paid me a gazillion dollars. So I wasn't in that line. But with these transactions, those banks want to work with me now. They're coming, they're coming to me to try to get in good with me so they can get the business to sell Tropical Smoothie or to do the financing for Tropical Smoothie, this, that, the other. So all those kids I couldn't get in line with, now I'm the client. And does that feel good? Is there ego involved in that? Yeah. And is that okay? I feel like it is. But it just shows sometimes it is B students that end up doing okay. Maybe even the
Oh,
occasional C minus student.
often, often. Well, look, because there's the leadership skills and personality and all these things that are not, you don't learn those in the classroom. They come naturally, and then you learn that those things you lean into over time, and you lean into self-growth, and you lean into being self-aware and improving. These are all not teachable qualities, certainly not in a college classroom. But let me ask you this. You started out in hotels, and you were in
Uh-huh.
hotels for some time, which is a very I think of like the hospitality in a hotel versus I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about how that led to Tropical Smoothie and the
Sure.
type of hospitality that you're delivering there and what crossed over.
Yeah, so it's a very personal story. When I got out of school, I was lucky enough to go to basically a hotel and restaurant school at Cornell, and I saw my dad at the end of it. Right, this wasn't a let's put it this way, the parents weren't just writing a check to send me to college, right? There were scholarships, there was all sorts of stuff I had to do, different stuff, and I got lucky. I ended up playing football, and that helped me get in, and blah blah blah. Things fell in place for me, and was scrappy. Was able to get through it between mom and dad doing kind of what they needed to and taking out loans and doing all that kind of stuff. And so after going through that, which is nothing the matter with that. That's how kids go to college. It's not a big deal, but I bet you my mom and dad would have loved to have stroked a check to send me to college. That wasn't the way that it worked out. But what did I see growing up? I saw my dad work in restaurants. So the one thing I learned was I'm going to go into hotels. That looks a little up and downy for me. Maybe hotels will be a little bit more stable because what it instilled in me was a fear of the financial unknown or a fear of hey, if you take a risk, sometimes it doesn't work out and bad things happen, right? It never kept me from taking risks, but it drove me towards hotels. And as fate would have it, the work that I did in hotels was really on the franchise development side of things. It was on the, let's find the person who's going to build the hotel, right? Let's convert the hotel. Let's do new development of a hotel. So that skill set was highly transferable. I did internships working in the hotel, working at the front desk, shuffling paper, doing sales in hotels, et cetera. And always loved the hospitality part of it. But like anything else, I'd love to tell you I had some grand plan, but I stumbled into the development side of the business and went on to work in hotel brokerage and a few other areas. And then when I got an opportunity at Tropical Smoothie, the first question I had for the person who was asking me about it was tropical what? Tropical who? I don't know what Tropical Smoothie Cafe is. There's about 300 units at that point. And I'd love to tell you again, I had a grand plan here of I was going to reintroduce myself into restaurants after being in hotels for a decade. You know what the honest answer is? I needed a job.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I
Yep.
love to say that because it's like, oh, you've been there 15 years, you're the CEO the past 6 years. Yeah, it started with I needed a job and I took a job, right? Back to your first job you might be able to get from your school. Things work out the way that they're supposed to work out and the hard work associated with it. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow and let those things happen. So I enjoyed the hotel piece, but I would be lying if I said when I started at Tropical Smoothie and getting back into restaurants, it didn't feel a little bit like coming home a little bit because at the end of the day, when I walk in a Tropical Smoothie, it's a restaurant, right? And what value can I add in that environment, in that 1,600 square feet? I can make a sandwich, make a smoothie, do some dishes, or run the POS. That's what I can do, or clean the front of house.
Hmm.
That's what I can do to help. Or I can talk to a guest and make them feel welcome, maybe introduce myself. My favorite part is to go to the drive through and go, hi, I'm Charles. I'm here in wherever from Atlanta. This is totally random. I'm actually the CEO of Tropical Smoothie. Like, can I buy you a smoothie or anything? And like the look on people's faces, I'm not famous. Nobody knows who I am, but it's still, they're like, cool. All right. Randomly in this drive-through, I just
Yeah.
see this guy in his shirt is sticking his head out. And they're probably like, that guy's probably, lying to me or something. But I like to do those fun things. And restaurants, I think you can do the fun things even more than
Uh-huh.
you can in hotels.
All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedule Fly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. Yeah, well, for sure. So, I mean, it's interesting because you said, so when you got there, 300 units, you
Yeah,
said?
about 300
And how many
units.
do you have now? It's like
We
12,
will we will cross 1,500 in
1,500.
yeah 1,500.
Okay, wow. That's some significant growth in a
It
short
is.
period of time. Okay, well, then a few things I want to address with you about that. One is, you know, I did, I've been to Tropical Smoothie. There's one in the Arboretum here in Charlotte.
Yep.
Or not the Arboretum. It's well, there might be an Arboretum. It's Providence Promenade. It's like
There
right
is.
at
Yes.
Providence and
Mhm.
485, and I've been
Yes.
there. Um, but I've always been kind of a smoothie guy, so I just go get a smoothie and I never. But I never paid a lot of attention to the fact that you've got. I knew there was some food, but my daughter, I told her the other night. Again, she's 20. She's a college student. I was like, man, I'm pretty stoked, Bill. I've got this guy Charles White. He's the CEO of Tropical Smoothie coming on. I was like, you like Tropical Smoothie? She literally said this. It's my favorite restaurant. And she
Oh,
told me what she orders. She orders the same thing every time, the same food, and I said, "Your favorite restaurant?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah." And I was like, "What do you like, do you eat there too? I thought you," she's like, "Yeah." And she told me what she eats, the sandwich she eats, the side she gets, the smoothie she gets. She loves it. She's like, "Dad, I've door dashed it to our house." I'm like, "Really?" I get pissed about that because
I
I'm like,
know.
"Get in the car and
That's
drive."
a separate that's a separate discussion.
That's a whole other thing,
Yeah.
whatever, that's the generation, but, so, yeah, she said she loves it, and I was like, "That's just that." I just didn't think of, you think tropical smoothie, I think smoothie king, like, you go in, you get a
Yeah.
smoothie, and you go, but you guys have really expanded that menu footprint, and I'm imagining your day parts are longer, and you've got
Mhm.
sort of a breakfast, lunch, dinner
Yep.
type. Okay.
Let me tell you why that story makes me bullish on Tropical Smoothie Cafe. You've got an amazing daughter. Um, she is telling you, this is my favorite restaurant, right? I bet you we've screwed orders up for her and like everything else. But overall, the quality of the product at Tropical Smoothie has always been very high. We need to get the service to go right along with that, because if you that's the 1-2 punch, right? The service and the product itself. But we're 60% smoothie, 40% food. So that is what differentiates us, Will. You're hitting on, yep, we have multiple day parts. The afternoon day part is really big for us. So next time you think about it, go get a Thai chicken wrap with your smoothie and see what you think. And again, you're an in shape guy, right? You might say, no, dude, I just do the smoothie because that works for me and that's what I'm doing. But I think what you're going to see coming out of Tropical Smoothie is a lot more occasion based things, and snacking and some other things that allow you to. We want to introduce our food to more people, because there's too many people like you, Will, that are like, I don't get it. Your name's Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Like, what, you have food? Yeah, we do. And it's it's really the big differentiator. And we're going to lean into that even more. We just launched bowls, acai bowls, and we have a chia bowl. We also have yogurt bowls. So the bowls have been a really big hit. Next, at the end of August, we're launching, I'm not trying to use too much industry speak, but our third kind of promotional window, and we've got some really exciting stuff coming. Some very specific bowls that are very close to some of the smoothies that we have. So we have the opportunity to really brand some things in this area. And so I think in the future, I think you're going to see food smoothies bowls, which is going to make us, anytime you have more product offerings, as you know from being around restaurants forever, the better you are. The more day ports and the more things that you have to offer that you can do at scale, but not without too much waste and too much everything else. So I'm bullish about that, but I'm bullish about the fact that your daughter's 20 or 22, because she's got a long time to eat at Tropical Smoothie Cafe. You and I, we don't have as long to eat at Tropical
Yeah,
Smoothie
that's
Cafe. So
right.
if you and I don't know that we have food, that's fine. But we need your daughter's age, and that is something that that age gap and the connection that group has. I've talked to kids who are like, I grew up on Tropical Smoothie. It's my favorite thing. It's what I grew up with. What did you and I grow up with? Probably McDonald's, right? Or Wendy's or something like that. How cool is that? That I get to work with a brand that it's like some people grew up with this brand and it's a part of who they are, and that to me is really, really cool and really special. Now, one thing I always do, Will, your daughter is a fan, so after this, you have to give me your daughter's address so that I can write her a note and send her some free smoothies. Because honestly, it's my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite
Mm,
thing to do because I get to be hospitable, right?
yeah.
I get to take the time, and I've got my pen, I got my little note cards, and I also always add in there, Will, by the way, your dad's actually a pretty cool guy.
She's already come back around to that, so she's 20, and we went through the teenage, like, I don't e like, I don't even exist to, she's starting to get, because she's getting a little closer to the real world now,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
has to get a summer job, and it's like, "Wait a
yeah,
minute, life's expensive, stuff's hard." I'm
yeah.
like, "Yeah." She's like,
Dad, inflation.
Yeah. It's like, "Okay, dad, I get it, like, you manage all this okay, okay, I got you."
Yeah, yeah,
Well, she did want me to she truly did want me to tell you that, and,
very cool.
so that well, it's funny you said that. I love what you just said, because that's the piece of hospitality that has it's just gotten lost in this, and it's not just hospitality. Let me take this a higher level. It's most of business in our country, particularly over the last decade when there was free money, everything has been about grow, 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 grow. And that's fine, but if you lose the foundation of what got you to where you were in the first place, which is always, whether it's your business or my business, is very much based on the experience the customer has when they engage with your brand. And if it's calling and, like, for me, if, I mean, I give, like, my personal cell phone's on our website on 3 pages. Like, people, I mean, this is my phone, by the way. Like, they call my flip phone and get me, and that matters because they know they have a person, right? And that stuff's really important, and it's writing thank you notes, doing things that don't scale, but taking. Have you ever heard the story of the little girl on the beach that was tossing starfish? Do you know this story?
I do, but remind me. You got to remind me real quick.
It's such a I love it so much because it's what you're doing. It's what you're doing with that pen and those cards, and it's so awesome. So, there's a young lady, and she's on a beach, and there's, like, tons and tons, like, thousands of starfish that have washed up, and, you and I being from the South and going to the beach a lot know that when the starfish come up, they dry up and they die. So she's out there and they've just washed up, the tide's going out, and she's picking up starfish and she's tossing them back into the ocean while they're still alive. And this man walks along and he's like, "Young lady, what are you doing there?" And she's like, "Well, these starfish are, they're still alive, but they'll bake in the sun and die. I'm throwing them back in so they live." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but, like, I'm looking down for like a mile down the beach and there's like thousands of starfish. Like, what you're doing is really not making a difference." And she picks up this starfish and she tosses it in and she looks at him and she goes, "It made a difference to that one." And he's like, and then he joins her, and then they start tossing, and then other people come along, and next thing you know, like, hundreds of people are on the beach and they toss all the starfish back then. But it started with just that one girl just tossing starfish or writing a note. And so what you're doing, as you know, is you're leading by example of, like, this is one of the things we can do that's, just one little thank you note at a time. And then some senior manager hears you're doing that and they do that. Next thing you know, you got managers at stores that are writing thank you notes and that kind of stuff. Like, that's the difference in, like, a good brand and a great brand that creates a loyal tribe and a community, and that's what we're all trying to create, is this community where the customers feel like they're kind of part of it, and we all want to be parts of these different communities. And if you can capture that in a consumer, then you've got, like, the magic formula. But it takes these little differentiators that nobody else does, starting with one at a time, and then it eventually scales into something really magical. I that's
But you know what? It's also, let's call it what it is. It's selfish as hell. Because when I do that, I want her as a customer for life. So
Yeah, oh yeah, for
I'm
sure.
selfish about it. It's marketing, right? And but you can do both. You can do
Yeah.
you can do the feel good and the marketing piece of you can what do I always call it? You can have ulterior motives so long as your actions are are positive
Well,
and helpful. You know what I mean?
for sure, it isn't. It's just like tossing that starfish is gonna love you forever because you saved its life, right? Same deal. Like, you write a note like that, and she'll keep it, and she'll be like, "Man, I gotta."
She definitely shouldn't keep it. It's not that important, but definitely spend and get the smoothies.
She'll do both. She'll do both.
Very good.
Uh, well, okay. So, um, when let me ask you this. I want to read this because like, have you ever played around with Chat GPT?
Yeah, of course.
You just, like, you never know. Like, you go, okay, is this thing giving accurate info? I'm gonna read what it said. I said, I've never done this. I said, "What are Charles Watson's achievements at Tropical Smoothie?" And it breaks down like 5 bullet points. So, number 1, rapid growth. Under his leadership, Tropical Smoothie has seen significant expansion, growing a number of locations in the U.S. Number 2, revenue increases. The company has experienced substantial revenue growth during his tenure, reflecting the brand's increasing popularity and market presence. Number 3, innovation in menu. Watson has overseen the introduction of new and innovative menu items that cater to evolving consumer preferences, including healthier options and seasonal offerings. Number 4, brand strengthening. He has focused on strengthening the Tropical Smoothie Cafe brand through marketing initiatives and community engagement. And the last one, 5, franchise development. Watson has played a key role in enhancing the franchise model, making it more attractive to potential franchisees and supporting existing franchise owners. Did it get it? Did it do a pretty good job?
I think it took every press release that we've done and
Yeah,
ascribed
yeah,
my name. But what that leads me to tell you is that the most important things there is no Charles Watson. There is no, and I truly feel that way. Of course, okay, say the humble thing, blah blah blah. Like the company, it's a group of people, human beings. Companies do not exist. They're a stack of paper. There's,
yeah,
Schedule Flyer, Tropical Smoothie. We're a stack of paper that's an LLC that's formed in Delaware. It means nothing. It's people, it's human beings. So the company and the part where it said a key role in, absolutely. There's one word that was not used in all 5 of those that is the most important word, and that's franchisee
yeah,
because
yeah.
I exist to serve franchisees because without franchisees, we have no business.
Right.
We have no business being in business unless we're serving our franchisees. And listen, am I perfect at that? Is Tropical Smoothie perfect at it all the time? No, of course not, right? We make mistakes all the time. But what I love about our business is it is the quintessential American business, as are other franchise businesses, started by Ben Franklin, ultimately, right, with his printing press that he franchised out to somebody down in South Carolina in Charleston. We are putting people in business for themselves, right, to drive the economy, to hire new people, et cetera, to create wealth and have an income and have a lifestyle. Man, that is what drives me. And now I love Tropical Smoothie with all my heart, but putting people in business and giving them an opportunity to have a better life and to send their kids to college for pointless degrees that mean nothing but get you your first job, that is important. And that's what I love about it. But it's franchisees that are out there selling smoothies every day, so I can't forget that.
You've got 1,500 or so locations. How many franchisees does
We've got
that?
about 525 franchisees, so the average franchisee owns about 3 locations.
Okay. Has that profile changed over the last 6 years? Do you look for people to own more, or what's
We
the
are
sweet spot?
we're looking for consolidation, but we're not doing some major brand push forward around that. I mean, we always in a franchise system, you're always looking for who wants to get bigger and who wants to exit. That's the beauty of it is that you can come in and out of a franchise system. You've always got an asset that you can sell. It's like a house, right? You
Yeah.
can sell it whenever you want. And guess what? It's okay to be burned out. It's okay to be tired of a particular business and want to sell it. Cool. At least you got something to sell. That's the important thing. When I started, the franchise ratio was 1 to 1, meaning it was one person, one franchise location. So it has grown over time. As we went from 300 to 1,500 restaurants, we've gone from 1 to 3, basically. And I foresee that continuing, right? As you get more multi-unit folks in, 4, 5, 6 is probably the next markers over the next 5 to 10 years is what I would expect. And that's just the normal. One thing I do in this industry is I study it. I look at other brands and how they progressed, right? You study McDonald's all day long. They've been around a really long time. You can study some of the other folks in our business to understand what the next thing is that's coming. And I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I know how to read and I know how to study, and I can read the tea leaves in terms of what the next thing is that's coming for a brand at this stage, at this size, with this number of franchisees, and prepare for what's going to come next and prepare our franchisees and get them ready for what's going to come next so that we can ultimately have continued success as we move through the next cycle, the 1,500 to 2,000 cycle and the 2,000 to 3,000 cycle. They're all different cycles. And one of the things that our franchise system is dealing with now is that when you go from 300, you know every franchisee's name, you have a relationship with them, et cetera. And I'm being like completely transparent. We have franchisees that were around for that, and we're now 1,500 units, and they may not be feeling the love in the same way. The way
Mm,
ultimately that I can show love to my franchisees, if all else fails, is that the business model works and that you're making money. That's the number one most important thing. And then as many other human relationships as I can have, I want to. But we're dealing with that right now with that rapid growth. Is how do you keep that human connection while also scaling and rapidly growing? So that's one that I'm working on currently.
do you have do you see more franchisees that come in that already have relationships with other franchise organizations that are trying to not put all their eggs in one basket and diversify? Because I seem to be seeing a little bit more of that these
We
days.
we are we are seeing, just like we are with the number of cafes that are franchisee owns. We're really at the tip of the iceberg there. Yes, we do, but it hasn't really started until the last 24 months or so. So I think you're going to see more of that happening at Tropical Smoothie Cafe. But primarily, it's been people who are passionate about this brand that buy a
Mhm.
franchise and open it, and they may open one, and now they have 19. Right? Every
Yeah.
story is a little bit different, but we're beginning to move into multi-brand, multi-unit franchisees in a little bit bigger way because the business model works and it's a 2-to-1 investment ratio and you can make money doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Julie Munson is a franchisee of y'all's,
Yes.
and I spoke to her today. She's a wonderful lady,
Yes.
longtime customer of ours, and I said, do you have any advice or whatever? She's like, you don't need any advice. He's awesome. He's a dynamic personality. He's got a lot of passion for the brand, and you'll just really enjoy talking to him. So, but I she's been our customer for probably, I don't know, like 10 years now or something like
You
that.
want the
Nice
best
lady.
Julie Munson and the Munson family story?
Yeah.
I'll make it very brief. She is a winner, but I believe that attitude is everything. And
Yeah.
she embodies that. And she's just like me. Oh, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Oh, I'm not that smart. Oh, you're not? But you've had a whole lot of success, right?
Yeah. Right.
Julie and her husband Bill, um, this is the American entrepreneurship story, right? The roles that they had previously, they couldn't create the lifestyle that they wanted. Let's just leave it at that. They opened their first tropical smoothie, their second tropical smoothie. The thing that Julie, I don't think she'd mind me sharing that she's most proud of is she has a home now on a little bit of acreage that all of her family can come back and her grandkids can come back and they got a pool and they can all hang out and they can be the Munson clan. And you know what she calls it? The house that Tropical Smoothie built.
Oh, I love
What
that.
she doesn't understand is it's not the house that Tropical Smoothie built, it's the house that Bill and
That,
Julie,
that
right?
they
So
built.
she and I will debate that fact. Was it Tropical Smoothie or was it you? And you want to talk about partnership? I think we're both have our heads in the right place. When I'm arguing it's her and she's arguing it's the brand.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, I know she's a huge fan of the brand and a delight to talk to. And I'm going to get her on here one day. I asked her to come on here a couple months ago. She's like, I don't know what I would say, and I'm like, I'm sure you would have plenty to say because I know you've been very successful there, and I know you speak at some of these conferences and things like that. So we'll get her on here for sure.
Good. You need to hear
I really yeah I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to speak with her. So okay, so we're at 1,500 and change. Um, are you geographically dispersed all over the US, or is this like concentric circles outside of Atlanta, or tell me about that?
the brand started down in Destin, Florida. So we
Oh,
have
okay.
um, we've grown from Destin. Our big areas of concentration: Florida, obviously, Michigan, believe it or not, the state
Okay.
of Virginia. We've got a great presence out in Las Vegas and in Phoenix. So we're in 44 states with
Okay.
those 1,500 locations. And so we you would say primarily east of the Mississippi, but when you look at Salt Lake in Utah and Phoenix and Las Vegas, we're really continuing to grow out west. Those last three states, California, Washington, Oregon, I'm not in any huge rush to get there. We'll get there. But we have so much opportunity. We have the opportunity to grow to 4,000 or 5,000 locations just in the DMAs that we're in right now, and just in those 44 states. I mean, you know as well as I do, right? Georgia has a lot more opportunities than the state of Idaho does, and Michigan has a lot more opportunities than, say, North Dakota or South Dakota does. So we feel very good about the markers that we put in the ground, and we can just go continue to develop in the markets that we're already in, which is a much better place to be than having to pioneer too many markets.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about that because I don't understand the franchise model well enough to understand that if you've kind of grown out of the Southeast, how you can go out there to no, I guess it just what your point's the right people. You
Yeah,
take a brand that's not known out in Nevada and you plant a stake out there. You got to execute on quality of food, quality of service. You got to have the right franchisee, but it seems like you really got to nail the franchisee in that situation when they don't have all of this sort of brand awareness and brand equity that would come with that out in a new market?
100%, 100%.
Okay.
The biggest determining factor is the franchisee and what we call it getting outside the four walls of the restaurant, right? You can do all those great things in the restaurant, but if nobody knows, right? If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
it's the same thing. So it is about the franchisee and what they bring to the table and how they get outside and they get in the community, right? Our vision at Tropical Smoothie is to inspire better, and inspiring better has a lot to do with our local communities, right? And again, it's a selfish good. It helps the business, but it's also giving back to the communities where we operate. So it takes special franchisees to go and pioneer markets, and we're at this point we're like, hey, this is good. You want to go do that? It's going to be really tough. I know you love Tropical Smoothie. You need another 30,000 people in the 5 mile radius that love Tropical Smoothie too. So you better go find those people pretty quickly and serve them and take care of them in order to have success.
Well, those last 3 states out there on the West Coast, yeah, don't be in any hurry. That's a tough environment. We have a buddy of mine, works for, um, well, maybe I won't say their name, but they're one of the largest apartment developers in the country, and they just stated they're not they're gonna fulfill what they've committed to, but they're doing no more projects in, Washington, Oregon, and California. The regulatory, the costs, just all that comes with that is really tough right now, and I'm sure that stuff will swing back around over time, but, it kinda has to run its course sometimes, I think.
We're letting it run its course. That's our view as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What's so getting from 1,500 to 2,000, is that the next? It's sort of like just
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
but it's not all about units, right? We're really focused on, you listen, we've got about $1 million AUV, average unit volume. And so the next stop for us is 1.3 million from an average unit volume. And I focus on that because the higher end restaurants, right, the flow through, you know very well. If we can get to a $1.3 million AUV, I want all of our franchisees at 18% plus in profitability. We have plenty of franchisees that are already at that, but I want to move my 15% profitability folks up to 18 to 20%. And the reality is that requires more volume. It requires more through the restaurant box. And so continuing to market the brand and the business in order to drive additional sales and thus additional flow through. Listen, I don't know much, but I know that if franchisees make money, everything's going to work out, right? The units will come if I just focus on the unit level economics and make sure that the business model works for our franchisees. The rest will take care of itself. So that's where I tend to focus my energies and effort.
Last thing, we'll close with what we sort of started with, which got us together, which is the Giving Kitchen. So
Yeah.
how do you know Jen and the crew over there?
Well, being Atlanta based, they've done a really nice job of utilizing, I guess you would call them consultants or people that are in the restaurant industry. Joanne Harold is a friend of mine, and she's done some work for the Giving Kitchen, pro bono or gratis. And so just an amazing organization and what they do to give back to restaurant workers and their families. And she's just, as you know better than I do, she's just incredibly inspirational. And so we do a lot of work with No Kid Hungry as our kind of our national charity partner. So we're looking at the Giving Kitchen to see how we may be able to get involved with them on a more local level in Atlanta and see where the fit is. Right, we're like a relatively big company, so we're trying to figure out what our localized fit might be. And so Giving Kitchen is one that we've gotten a little bit involved with and have been talking to see if that's a good fit for us.
Last question, bit of a curveball. Do you play
Sure.
golf?
I do play golf. I do play golf. Not well, not well. I've found
Funny.
that as I've elevated into this position, the golf clubs have a little bit of dust on them, but that's not 100% fair because I also have a 9 and an 11-year-old, and having the kids' ages that you have, you know that 9 and 11 is from soccer to baseball to ballet to piano to this, that, and the other. So when I'm not working, you'll probably find me at a field somewhere with one of my kids. And I fought with my wife for the first 5 years of our marriage. I thought that like Mad Men style, that of course you get to play one round of golf a weekend, right? You get to leave for 6 or 7 hours. After 5 years of fighting, Will, I lost. I didn't lose. I just gave up. And so I
Yeah.
do play and I love to play, but I don't get as much of an opportunity as I'd like.
Well, maybe sometime I'll come down there and I'm not great. I'm like bogey guy, right? I'll shoot 90 or
That's
whatever, but I
about
have
where I'm at.
fun and I
Yeah,
like doing it. Maybe we'll get around to golfing
that'd
sometime.
be great. I got a spot to take us, so we'll do that for sure.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you very much. And I mean, this has been educational. This has been inspiring.
Thanks, Will. Great to meet you. I can't wait to meet you in person, man. You're a heck of
Me
a guy.
too. Yeah, man. Thank you.
See you, buddy. Bye.